Hey there, and welcome to the UkeStuff channel, and welcome to this full UkeGuide review of the Koa Kalane Solid Acacia Soprano Pineapple Ukulele. This one was sent to me by Koa Kalane, along with another ukulele that'll be showing up in the near future. One of them was sent to me, the other one was sent to me to give away to one of my students. So just so you know, that is where this one comes from. Koa Kalane is a company in Hawaii that imports solid acacia instruments and then sells them not only in Hawaii but worldwide. There was a time when they were selling actually at a Kmart in Hawaii, but that Kmart has since closed. So generally, if you want to buy one of these, it is online these days. I recently filmed an update about how these instruments made it through a Minnesota/Wisconsin winter. If you're interested in learning more about that, you can check out that video. But sort of as a spoiler, they made it just fine with a modicum of care. So to summarize very quickly about humidity, if you live somewhere where the humidity goes below 40%, it goes way under 40% where I live in the winter, make sure that you're humidifying during that time, and if your humidity goes above 60%, consider dehumidifying. Otherwise, you've got a big wide range of what's acceptable. So let's talk about what we're going to do with this instrument. First of all, we are going to talk about some subjective categories. Then we're going to look at the specifications for the instrument, and then we'll summarize, and I'll give it a full UkeGuide rating. So let's begin. This is their solid acacia pineapple soprano ukulele. Pineapples are sort of a special design. I believe that Kamaka was the first company that actually designed a pineapple ukulele. And I think the thought is that ultimately you gain a little bit more surface area, so you get a little more sound and a different sound than with a soprano ukulele. Makes sense to me. That's fair to me. So I'll accept that sort of description of that. Now, these sell on Koa Kalane's website. This is April of 2021. They sell for $113 plus $35 shipping, which makes it a total of $148. That is an incredible value for a solid acacia ukulele. And again, we'll talk about appearance later, but solid acacia ukulele for $148. Now, if that was going to be a junky ukulele, then that'd be $148 not well spent. Is that the case here? Well, let's find out. Ultimately, I think this is an exceptional value, just like the other Koa Kalanes. If you have been interested in getting into a solid ukulele, but not wanting to spend a ton of money, because usually solid instruments are going to be starting probably more around the $300, $400 range on up. And of course, you have full Koa models. These are not Koa. So please note, it can be confusing with the Koa Kalane name to think that these are Koa. These are not Koa, they're Acacia. Koa is a sub-branch of Acacia, so all Koa is Acacia, but not all Acacia is Koa. And it does make a difference in how the trees react and respond. I personally find that most Acacia tends to be a little bit darker than in sound, not color, but Acacia tends to be a little darker in sound than Koa. Koa to me tends to be a little more bright, but there of course are exceptions with every instrument and how they're built. So as a general rule, the Acacia instruments that I played, solid Acacia, tend to be a little bit darker versus Koa that tend to be a little bit brighter. But they're in the same general species, just they're not the same. So keep that in mind. In terms of value, I should also mention that the one thing that is included is a light gig bag, probably about 3 millimeters of padding. Quite honestly, you'll probably want to buy a better bag or a soft case for this instrument because it's that good of a quality of instrument to deserve a better case. Value is exceptional for a solid wood acacia instrument. Now, in terms of build quality, it's really put together quite well. The French polish is really nice, feels great in the hands. They've done a nice job of building this with smooth edges that make it feel comfortable to hold. It feels good. There's really no flaws on the outside. There are joints on this headstock. Some of the other Koa Kalanes I've reviewed have actually been out of one piece of wood, which just doesn't happen very often. But there you can see a very clear split in the wood, a joint right there with the heel and the neck. And then there is a taper that comes down that actually hides this change incredibly well, but a long taper making that another piece. Now we'll get into playability later. This neck is not the same as the other Koa Kalanes that I've played, and that will make a difference with the ultimate score of the ukulele. Doesn't make it bad, but it does make it a little different. Now, instead of just talking about the outside and how it, is looking, even the bridge, by the way, is sanded nicely. Sometimes you get these bridges on very cheap instruments where the corners are sharp. Not the case here. It's really good. There were some sharp fret ends, I do have to admit. Those are easily taken care of, but instead of talking just about the outside, let's take a look at what's happening on the inside. All right, let's take a look at the inside of the Koa Kalane Soprano Pineapple Ukulele. Now looking at the bottom, you can see the inside construction, notch kerfing. You have a tail block, not a lot of glue, a little bit of extra glue on the tail block there, but otherwise not bad at all. And then you can see the bridge plate up there. That just supports the bridge, which is much smaller than the bridge plate, incidentally. You can see one of the horizontal braces on the bottom, as well as a brace that runs along the two sides of the matched bottom down there. All right, let's take a look at the upper bout of the pineapple ukulele. All right, here we are looking at the upper bout of the ukulele. You can see one of the horizontal braces there, a little bit of glue there, some glue seepage there, some glue seepage on the neck block, and then more of the notch kerfing and the construction up there. So overall, pretty standard, clean, traditional build of a solid wood ukulele. And that's our quick look at the Koa Kalane Solid Pineapple Soprano Ukulele. Now let's talk about appearance. It's very, very plain, but you do have the pineapple aspect of it, and you do have some really nice wood. It's not flamed. It's not a flamed acacia at all, but it is a beautiful matched set. They did a really nice job matching it, and you can see that it comes underneath as well. No complaints there. Perhaps the one complaint in appearance is that that part of the heel is so much lighter than the rest, but even that is kind of a weak complaint or a minor complaint on the instrument. It just has an engraved logo on the headstock instead of a inlay. And of course, as I've mentioned in my other Koa Kalane reviews, some people will get a little uptight because they think that that logo is too much like Kamaka's, but ultimately it's a different company. It is a slightly different logo. I don't quite have a problem with that, but I can understand people that do. Now, in terms of availability, these are generally available to order. They've been available all the time that I've been looking at Koa Kalane. This actually was one of the instruments on my going to buy list. So that's why it's really rather amazing to have this in my hands, because once I saw what Koa Kalane was making and the value there, I wanted one of these. So it's wonderful to have. So these have been available. There is a possibility that they could run out and have to wait for another order, but generally they are readily available and you can get them at koakalane.com. Now let's talk about playability. My big complaint is that this neck is not the same profile as the other Koa Kalanes that I have played. So as a result, it's a much thicker C shape. It's generally what you would find from most other manufacturers, but one of the things that I absolutely raved about in my other Koa Kalane reviews is the shape of the neck. Well, this neck does not have that same flat profile. It's very C-shaped, so that is something to be aware of, and it will impact the final score of the ukulele. Other than that, again, there were some sharp fret ends, but string spacing is pretty generous on this instrument, and action was incredible. Really set up very nicely, easy to play, and very good playing experience. So the only negative for me is the shape of that neck, and I would love to see that neck shaped like the other Koa Kalanes that are out there. Now, in terms of sound quality, what I'm going to say is it has a warm sound, and the sustain is in the lower part of the instrument. So I'll just play a C chord. It's missing the sparkle, and it's missing a punch that you would normally have with a soprano ukulele. I don't care whether it's a double bout ukulele or pineapple. Usually there's a little more punch and zing. I think that has a lot to do with the string choice. These are Aquila strings. They come with the tag that say that they're Aquila Supernalgut strings. They are that whitish color that you would expect of Aquila Supernalgut strings. And don't get me wrong, Aquila Supernalgut strings are good strings. There's a reason why the industry went to those as sort of a standard on most ukuleles compared to what they used to sell in ukuleles that were just awful strings, awful nylon strings that really didn't serve the purpose. Well, Aquila strings are fine, but I happen to have an ear that likes the sparkle and clarity of fluorocarbons, so I cannot wait to go and change the strings on this instrument. I don't think that the sound top is that thick. I think the sound top is plenty thin. I think the body is plenty deep to give it some nice sound and nice, really good sustain and good tone quality. But I think the strings are really hurting it. One of the things I like to do is let you see what I'm hearing. So I'm going to play a C chord a number of times into Tonal Energy Tuner, which is an app on my iPad that lets you see what's happening with the sound spectrum, both in the original sound and the sustain. So here we go. So what I'm hearing and seeing is an instrument that doesn't have a whole lot of high-end sparkle and has sustain and warm sound in that lower part of the instrument's overall tonal spectrum. So again, I would like to try this with other strings. I'm going to try this with other strings, and I may even compare the Tonal Energy Tuner, although it won't be perfect because the iPad's never quite in the same spot when I'm recording, but it might give you a different idea of what different strings can do for an instrument. All right, now that we've talked about the subjective categories, let's talk about the specifications. It is a soprano ukulele, and it has a scale length just over 13 and a half inches. It's 13.5625 inches from nut to saddle. There are 12 frets, and that's pretty standard for a traditional soprano, but there are no side position markers on it. And the other Koa Kalanes I've played have had those side position markers. The body style is a pineapple, and the soundboard and the back and sides is made out of solid acacia. The fretboard is made out of rosewood, as is the bridge. It is a slotted bridge, so you tie the knot and slip it in, which is really nice and easy for beginners. And the fretboard is not radiused, it's a flat fretboard. The nut and saddle are bone. There is kind of a nice shape to the sides of the saddle, and there's the nut. It is not a compensated saddle, it's just straight across. And the finish is a French polish finish, which feels great in the hand. There's just not a whole lot of flaming in that acacia, but it feels really nice. The overall length is 21 inches exactly from tip to tail, and it weighs 1 pound 2.2 ounces. So ultimately, it feels heavier than it is. It feels denser than it really is. It feels really solid, almost over solid, overbuilt, but I don't really think that it is. The tuner type is open geared, and here is the real amazing part. The action was incredibly low. It's less than 0.25 at the first fret and 2.25 millimeters at the 12th fret. That's really low action, makes it really easy to play. It might be a little harder to pick individual notes with action that is that low. The nut width is a roomy 35.84 millimeters, almost 36 millimeters, and that's kind of unique. And the space between the strings is 8.71 millimeters, which is a little bit wider than usual, making it 29.44 millimeters G to A. So really, it has a pretty comfortable spacing compared to many soprano ukuleles. Now, the depth of the instrument at the third fret is 22.10. That's from the top of the strings to the bottom of the neck, 22.10 millimeters. Now, that is getting towards a thicker neck, but also the C shape, again, is really pronounced on this instrument. All right, now that we've looked at the subjective categories and the specifications, let's summarize the instrument. This was one of the instruments on my to-buy list, absolutely. Solid Acacia Soprano Pineapple Ukulele from Koa Kalane. I think I have a warm heart towards pineapple instruments. I think they look cool, and a lot of them sound really quite good. Now, with my positive experiences with Koa Kalane in the past, I was really interested to see how this one would do. As usual, it's priced incredibly well. It's built pretty well altogether, with a couple of exceptions that neck is really thick, and I would also like to see at least their traditional one side position marker, if not more. Would be nice to see some side position markers. The most amazing thing though is the warmness of this ukulele. It's a really warm sound versus what you would normally expect from a soprano. So I'm really looking forward to trying different strings because the sound is darker and warmer to me than it really should be for a soprano. Now, as usual, if you buy one of these, you'll probably want to plan on buying a gig bag, a better gig bag, or a case as well. Now, what I do is I review every ukulele on a scale between 0 and 5 ukuleles. And Koa Kalanes have done very well in my reviews in the past, and this one is no exception. However, it's going to be a little bit lower score, and I'll make sure that I let you know why. Okay, this one will get a 4 out of 5 ukulele, which is actually still a really good score, but it's not as high as the other. And I'm going to give you 3 reasons why. The first and most important is that the neck shape is different, and it does not feel as nice to me to play as the other Koa Kalanes that I've played. So it doesn't mean that it's bad. It feels good, but it is a very wide C-shaped neck, and I'd love to see the same neck profile on that. Incidentally, I'd also love to see the concert neck on, for example, a pineapple body or even a soprano, long neck soprano pineapple. Would love to see that too. Issue number 2 is missing side position markers, and issue number 3 is just the sound with the strings. It's not a bad sound. It's a warm sound, but I'm looking for a different sound from a soprano, and I'm betting that strings will change that. So with that in mind, again, 4 out of 5, not bad. If you're interested in a solid Acacia pineapple soprano ukulele, definitely do give this one a look. It's still a really, really nice ukulele. I just have to be a little tougher on it because of the neck. All right, thanks so much for watching the channel. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll be back soon with some more Uke stuff for you.